Hi guys, welcome back to SK Educates, and in today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to solve quadratics by completing the square. Let's jump to our first example. Here we have x squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Your first step is to look at the first two terms on the left hand side, which in this case is x squared plus 6x. And essentially we're going to be rewriting this into a different form. How we do that? Open up a bracket, place an x here, and then half the coefficient on x, which is a number before x. So half of plus 6 is plus 3. Square that whole bracket, then put a minus sign, and what follows the minus sign is the square of this number. So 3 squared is 9. Now, if you're thinking, why did we do this? If you expand this, you will literally get x squared plus 6. We just rewrite it in this form so that when we're solving for x, it's easier to get it on its own. Now, we have this excess term plus 5, so add a plus 5, and this is all equal to 0. So essentially, all we've done here is rewritten the first line into a different form for the second line. So now we can simplify. So x plus 3 all squared minus 9 plus 5 gives you minus 4. All of this is equal to 0. And then remember, when you solve an equation, you're solving for the unknown. So we want to make x subject to a formula. So to do that, I'm going to move the minus 4 to the other side. So I have x plus 3 all squared. If you move minus 4 to the other side, it becomes a plus 4. And this square is causing problems to get x on its own. So we do the opposite of square, which is square root. So I'm going to square root this side. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And then this and this will cancel out, which is what we wanted. So we're left with x plus 3 on this side. And on this side, we have plus minus root 4 is 2. Now let me explain why we do a plus minus. If I did 2 squared, I'd get 4. What if I did minus 2 squared? I'd also get 4. That means if I square root 4, my answer could be either plus 2 or minus 2. And that works for any square. So now, because you want to get x on its own, move that plus 3 to the other side. So we get minus 3 plus minus 2. So this leaves us with two solutions. X equals minus 3 plus 2, and x equals minus 3 minus 2. So x equals minus 3 plus 2 gives you minus 1, and minus 3 minus 2 gives you minus 5. So these are your final two solutions. And like any quadratic, because the highest power is a 2, you should have two solutions, which we do in this case. So now we've got x squared minus 8x plus 5 equals 0. Again, we're going to rewrite this part of the left-hand side. By doing that, you open up a bracket, you place an x here, and then you half the coefficient, which is the number before x. So half of minus 8 is minus 4. Then you square that bracket, put a minus sign on the outside always, and just square this number. Ignore the sign. So the square of 4 is 16. And then we have this excess term, which is a plus 5. So you add 5, and this is all equal to 0. Now let's simplify. So I'm going to have x minus 4 all squared. Minus 16 plus 5 gives you minus 11, and that is equal to 0. Then because we want x on its own, the first step is to move this minus 11 to the other side. So it becomes a plus 11. So we have x minus 4 all squared equals, move the 11 to the other side, and it will look like that. Then again, square root both sides to get rid of this square. So if I square root this side, these two cancel out, and I have plus minus square root 11. And we know plus minus square root 11 will not give you an integer, so we just leave it like that. So now we're left with x minus 4 equals plus minus root 11, and then move the minus 4 to the other side to get x on its own. So if you move the minus 4 to the other side, you get a plus 4, so it's just 4 plus minus root 11. And you're left with two solutions. X equals 4 plus root 11. That's one solution. And the other solution is x equals 4 minus root 11. If in the question it says to put your answers to a certain number of significant figures or decimal places, then just pop this into your calculator and round it to what is required in the question. So what do we do when we have quadratics with coefficients? This is example 3, and in this case we have 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 equals 0. Now all you have to do is factor out that coefficient, which is a number before x squared, and in this case we have a 2. So if I factor out the 2, the square bracket now becomes x squared plus 2x minus 3, close bracket, equals 0. And now if you haven't noticed already, what's inside the square bracket is just a quadratic without a coefficient. And we know how to complete the square because we just did it in the previous two examples. So all you have to do now is complete the square for that highlighted section and have the 2 factored out the whole time. So I'm just going to put the 2 here. Open up that square bracket. Now when you complete the square here, we first rewrite this in this form. We have x plus half the coefficient on x, which is a 2 here. So plus 1, all squared. Put a minus sign, and what follows the minus sign is just the square of this number. So 1 squared is just 1. And then we have this minus 3 term. And now we can simplify that. So we'll have 2 x plus 1 all squared. Minus 1 minus 3 gives you minus 4. Close the bracket, equals 0. Now that the inside of the square bracket is simplified completely, we can now expand. So I'm going to do 2 multiplied by this term and 2 multiplied by this term. So I'll be left with 2 x plus 1 all squared, and then 2 multiplied by minus 4, which is minus 8. And this is equal to 0. And now you just solve this for x. So you want to get x on its own. First, I'm going to move that minus 8 to the other side. When you move it over the equal sign, it becomes the opposite. So the opposite of minus 8 is plus 8. So you'll have 2 x plus 1 all squared equals positive 8. Then divide both sides by 2. So if I divide this side by 2, that becomes a 1. And if I divide this side by 2, you'll get 4. So now you have x plus 1 squared equals 4. And now that square is causing some problems, so we square root both sides. So this and this will cancel, and you have square root 4. But remember, it's plus minus, which I'll add in a second. So now we have x plus 1 equals plus minus. We know that square root 4 is just 2. And then move that plus 1 to the other side, and we have x equals minus 1 plus minus 2. Therefore, your two solutions are x equals minus 1 plus 2, which is x equals positive 1, and x equals minus 1 minus 2, which is x equal to minus 3. And they are your final two solutions. I'm now going to go over one additional example that doesn't actually divide as nicely as this one did because we had integer values the whole way through. So let's go to example 4. Here we have 2x squared plus 5x minus 1 equals 0. So again, you want to factor out that coefficient of x squared, which in this case again is 2. So we will have 2, then open the square bracket and you'll have x squared plus 5 over 2x, which is just 2.5. I personally prefer working with fractions, but if you prefer decimals, then please feel free to do so. And then we have minus 1 over 2, which is a half, which again you can write in decimals. And then continue as normal. So we have 2, and now we want to complete the square on this section. So we'll have x, then half this coefficient, which will give you plus 5 over 4, all squared, minus And then what follows the minus is the square of this number, which is going to be 25 over 16. I just squared the numerator and the denominator. And then we have the minus half from here. So I put minus half there. Close the square bracket, and that's equal to 0. Then you want to simplify. So you have 2 x plus 5 over 4 all squared. And then if you simplify these two fractions here, you'll have minus 33 over 16. Close the bracket, and that's equal to 0. And then again, you want to multiply out each term. So you're going to do 2 multiplied by the bracket here and 2 multiplied by this fraction. So I'll be left with 2x plus 5 over 4 all squared minus 33 over 8 equals 0. And now continue to move this term to the other side and solve for x. So now I'll have 2x plus 5 over 4 all squared equals positive 33 over 8. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. This just becomes 1. This becomes a 16. And then we want to square root both sides. So if I square root this side and square root this side, well, we have a plus minus here. These two cancel. And we're left with x plus 5 over 4 equals plus minus, and you can simplify this into root 33 over 4. Which means your final two answers are x equals minus 5 over 4 plus root 33 over 4. That's one solution. And your other solution is minus 5 over 4 minus root 33 over 4. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what topics you'd like to see sooner.